let me take each of you back with Holly and me to April 6, 1991. We're in Holly's room at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. It was the last day of Passover, so we were away from our family and friends, and we weren't using the phone because of the holiday. We were thrilled by the birth of our first child, but we were also concerned because she had stopped eating and the doctors had taken her out to run tests. Holly's room opens to the door. Our pediatrician walks in and he sits down and he's visibly uncomfortable. And then he says, I don't know how to tell you this, but we're pretty certain your baby has Down syndrome, and she also needs an emergency operation. And in an instant, our lives changed. I remember walking through the hospital halls, pretty dazed, and searching desperately for hope of some kind. But at the time, there was no one to talk to. Thank God, the surgery was successful. Danielle was released from ICU, but both Holly and I were still searching. Because of our involvement with Aish Torah, I received a call from its founder, Rabbi Weinberg from Jerusalem, and then afterwards his cousin, Mrs. Warman, who ran a large organization in New York, an educational organization for people with disabilities. She told me that one of her clients, a young woman with Down syndrome, just started a job as a teacher's aide in a kindergarten class. I asked her, is it possible one day that she could teach the kindergarten class? She paused and answered, and I could hear her exact words today. I can honestly tell you, she said, that I don't know. Because if you had asked me several years ago, I would have told you she never could have become a teacher's aide. Shortly after that, I also spoke with someone who is the Jewish establishment's representative for children with disabilities, long before the existence of our great organization, that Israel Center. I told him, we would like Danielle to be in a typical Jewish day school, from preschool all the way through high school. He responded, and I could also hear his words today. It will never happen, he said. It will never happen. But it was too late. I had already spoken to Mrs. Warman, so I didn't believe him. But I couldn't really blame him, because it was as recent as the early 1950s that all of our parents were still following the advice of Dr. Benjamin Spock, who recommended in his book, Baby and Child Care, that infants with Down syndrome should be immediately institutionalized. In those early 1950s and then in the 1960s, common refrain from doctor would still be, it will never talk, it will never walk, pretend it's never been born, it'll be better for everybody. In 1968, in the highly regarded Atlantic Monthly, a very respected theologian, Dr. Joseph Fletcher, wrote, quote, there is no reason to feel guilty about putting a Down syndrome baby away, whether it's put away in the sense of hidden in a sanitarium or in a more responsible, lethal sense. True guilt arises only from an offense against a person, and a Downs is not a person. In 1982, despite worldwide protests, the Illinois Supreme Court allowed Baby Doe to forego a life and death operation, not dissimilar at all to what Danielle went through at Cedars-Sinai Hospital. And Baby Doe was not treated and then died because Baby Doe had Down syndrome. In 2005, that's just 3 years ago, Time magazine named as one of the 100 most influential thinkers and scientists Peter Singer, professor, Princeton University, chairman of its Center for Human Values, who writes in his book, Practical Ethics, that babies with any significant disability should be killed when there's a benefit to other non-disabled people since, quote, killing a defective infant is not morally equivalent to killing a person. Now, looking back again to those early 1950s, there was a young Englishman. He didn't have Down syndrome or any disability, but he was also told it will never happen. Until 1954, no one, no matter how hard they tried, could run a mile in 4 minutes. Doctors even speculated that a man would die if it were done. And then came Roger Bannister, who not only knew it could happen, but he was also a medical student in England. And he figured out that his speed would actually increase if he just learned to breathe differently. So in 1954, he ran the mile in less than 4 minutes. And then the interesting thing was, shortly after he did it, lots of runners started running the mile in less than 4 minutes. And eventually the time came when it was hard to remember or believe that anyone thought a man who ran a 4-minute mile would die. Today, looking back, it's hard to remember or believe Dr. Spock, the other doctors of the 1950s and 60s, the Atlantic Monthly of 1968, the Baby Doe case of 1982, Peter Singer, and even the words, "It will never happen."